Let's go. We'll do that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Sooners. Coming up next, Trinidad Chambliss is expected to get his waiver for another year. What could that mean for an important Oklahoma Sooners?
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So one of the biggest stories of the offseason so far has been the waiver application of Trinidad Chambliss. Now, it was denied by the NCAA. His appeal was denied. He filed a lawsuit in Mississippi to get an injunction on his behalf. And it's looking like, according to multiple reports, that things are trending very positively for Trinidad Chambliss to return in 2026. And everybody in the Grove celebrates down there in Oxford, Mississippi. Oklahoma will have to face Trinidad Chambliss once again. Maybe a little redemption on the plate. But, Jay, this could potentially mean some good news for Owen Heinecke.
Yeah, it could. I have questions about this Trinidad Chambliss, if they're actually going to get the injunction and actually get a waiver, if the lawsuit would work. It feels like the NCAA is going to find a way to win this battle because this is a battle they have to win if they, want to be success. Now, Chambliss' situation is a lot different than the one that Diego Pavia was able to get approved. Mm-hmm. Remember, Diego Pavia played in JUCO, and that was their argument is that one shouldn't count against you. Chambliss played D2. Now, he may be able to get that to work, and in his suit, he's arguing he only played in 23, 24, and 25, and I don't know how that's going to work in his argument, because if it really was true that he wouldn't have been credited for any other years before that, right? He may not saw the field, but he was on that team, and he was a part of those scholarships at Ferris State. It's going to be tough to be able to appeal that. Same thing with Owen. They're taking, I guess, the 15 minutes or whatever, or however time he played lacrosse. They use that as a year of eligibility because he played in the sport. It doesn't sound like lacrosse has, especially at this level, has redshirt rules. So you play, it counts. Sucks. Totally get it. It's going to be tough to be able to argue on that he deserves another year of football when he played a different sport. That's where that challenge is going to come in making that argument against an attorney. Now, they filed this in Mississippi, so of course they were going to win the injunction. It's in Mississippi. Yeah. What did you expect? If it get bubbled up higher to higher courts, very good chance that bad boy gets completely denied. And I think the NCAA is banking on that. And one last comment on this, though, John. I find it fascinating that we keep running across these. And I'm going to be 100% honest. I don't think this is a good thing for the players. You would think I'd say the NCAA, but no, I think this is actually a great thing for the NCAA, because this is a great argument for them going to Congress to say, see, we allowed them to try to self-regulate and they couldn't do it. If we put rules in, it keeps coming back to you anyway. So why don't you just make a blanket rule in our favor and we can end all of this? They're taking notes of every single one of these scenarios, and they're going to use every single one of these as ammunition to point out that if y'all put the blanket out there for us, we wouldn't be dealing with this. We wouldn't be wasting y'all's time in the courts. Can y'all do something about this? That's why they keep letting this stuff go. That's why they keep allowing these fights to happen, because they know that they can use this later on against us, which sucks.
So, it's interesting because Congress has very much been hands off on a lot of the things NCAA. Now, there have been people that have been outspoken, Congress people from across the country about the issues with NIL and the transfer portal and all that, but nobody really wants to tackle any of this because they don't want to piss off their constituents, especially their big money donors that will have vested interests in their college football programs being able to go spend big. So there's a lot of regulatory issues at hand from state to state, from a national perspective, from university to university. You can't treat the Power 5 or the Power 4 plus Notre Dame like you do the G6. You can't treat the FBS like you do the FCS. They're different games, but I wonder how much the NCAA is going to be willing to fight and how high they'll be willing to fight. Cause I feel like in basketball, they've got bigger fish to fry right now. Like you've got dudes that have signed professional contracts coming to play college ball. That's totally, to me, that's a bigger issue than guys trying to get a medical exemption year.
No, and I agree, but I think that that's also by design by them, right? They're allowing and they're quote unquote entertaining these in a way to where they're not shooting them down because they need this ammunition to win their arguments later with all the Congress people saying, look, you see how this is becoming a circus? If y'all would have just made the blanket, they're basically gaslighting everybody. If y'all would have just made the blanket, we wouldn't be here. This would all be gone, but we can't do anything. Woe is us, the NCAA. We have no power, even though we have all the power. Yeah. To me, if they would have just went ahead and knowing this was going this direction, instead of saying, oh, we're going to be hands off and look, we'll allow certain things, but here's some rules. And hopefully you don't try to circumvent them or find loopholes. If they just walked and say, you know what, we're going to put together the structure. We're going to pay the players. We're going to make it so we can pay the players, and we're going to put together the structure. They should have known, regardless, they were going to get sued. Mm-hmm. And everybody's going to try to see how far across the line they can go. People are habitual line steppers. You know this. That's especially what they do. Sport. Exactly. The big money donors have been this way for years. Like, I think the funniest thing about donors and or whatnot when it comes to these sports is they're literally people talk about ROI and all that. They don't care about ROI. You know what their ROI is, John? Their ROI is that they can have bragging rights to the next dude that's also making billions or millions of dollars next to them. That's it. It's always been that way. That's why you have money in the bag where people are willing to break the law to get a kid to go to their school. They don't care about ROI because their only ROI is wins. And there's no guarantee you can get wins regardless of who you put on a roster. We've seen that this season. Shout out to Kurt Signetti. I'm going to keep giving him props because he deserves it. Yeah. You can't guarantee it. So they're basically, they don't care. They're throwing money. There's no such thing as ROI when it comes to NIL and all of this stuff. They don't care. So that's the one thing we need to get out of the era or whatnot with this. For the NCAA, if they would have just went ahead and put together a true plan and put together a true structure, we wouldn't be here. But they're not. They want somebody else to do it. They're passing the buck on. And that's probably the thing that annoys me the most about the way that they're going about this. Why are we passing the buck? Put your big boy pants on and get in the office. You know you're going to get sued regardless. So have a plan. That way the lawsuits are stupid. But like you said, you've got professionals trying to come back. It's like, I'm going to be irreparably harmed if I can't leave the G League and come back to Alabama. Right. What? Yeah. You're playing pro ball now. You playing Alabama ain't going to help you get drafted again. Yeah. Dude, it's time for you to go to Europe. It's time to go to Israel, Australia. Like, go find a professional league somewhere else because, it's ludicrous. Really what needs to happen and what may come down the pipeline eventually is an antitrust law that allows the NCAA to kind of have some more ammunition to not get sued left and right. Because I think that's the difficulty is they've got so many lawsuits that they're part of, and there's always the threat of another that you can't fight on multiple fronts. It's just really difficult to do that. So we'll see, man, whether it leads to an Owen Heinecke extra year or not, whether he decides, hey, you know what, I'm just going to go to the NFL anyway. Cause according to his interview with the Oklahoma Breakdown, he's already training for the Senior Bowl and the NFL scouting combine where he'll probably test incredibly well. So we'll see, man. The future of college football is still kind of murky, but hopefully at some point we'll get some more guidelines on the eligibility rules because I got like TJ Finley playing 7 years. Like, dude, you can, I get that. That's great. I'm glad that you can, but at some point we've got to move on. We all have to. So yeah, we gotta be done.
That's it. All right. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And now the #1 sports podcast network. Go check out the Locked On Everydayer Club for $5 a month, $50 a year to get ad-free audio and also an invite to a members-only Discord app where you can chat with Jay and John. And you can ask us questions that we will feature here on Locked On Sooners. And
I will fight you
can, I don't fight anybody. And
I fight, but John will.
Jay's a fighter. I'm a lover. And you can go and you can discuss sports across every major sport with hosts from all over the Locked On network. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. You can follow me at John 9 Williams and read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer
Sooner.